I'm Matthew Kaufman, and this is my Shadow Leader presentation for Leadership Development Studies class. I did mine on Reverend Omar Gonzalez, the pastor of my local church. So just to get this started, it wasn't very difficult. I've known him for years, and he's a good friend of mine. At least I would consider him a good friend, and he of me. So the first in-person approach was just very casual and informal. After church one day, I approached him about it, and he was very happy and excited to do it. His face kind of lit up when I mentioned it. We discussed some possible dates and the time frame involved. Subsequently, later that week, during Vacation Bible School, or right before Vacation Bible School, we had another highly informal meeting in the kitchen and discussed a formal date, that being the coming Thursday, when we would have the actual Shadow Day. So then that Thursday, he took me out to lunch, invited another friend of his who's a pretty theologically leadershipy fellow, and over lunch we had a good discussion about leadership ethics and what they believe about them. Subsequently, he and I returned to the church office, and he took me throughout his normal day. Omar's personal leadership philosophy can be best defined by humility. According to him, humility is the corest attribute which makes a leader capable of service. Furthermore, humility is utterly essential to allowing a leader to learn from their mistakes, to not keep repeating them and to rise above their ego and overcome their flaws. Without it, it follows, one cannot effectively manage people. Omar has talked about some other churches he's been in and some other organizations where he thinks a lack of humility is a major issue. From humility grows service, which is the ultimate goal of leadership according to him. And speaking of goals, Omar's primary vision for the church is to bring the Word of God to the people of God and lift everyone up together in love and mutual service. He seeks to do this by expanding the church membership and by doing his best to show acts of love and kindness to everyone while teaching the historic truths of Christianity as they've been passed down. As for administrative strategies, well, the principle of humility runs through very strongly in that as well. In his day-to-day work, one major administrative task he has is leading session meetings. However, he doesn't vote. Instead, he moderates the sessions. Rather than directly taking a commanding role, he is being more humble and taking more of a servant role, negotiating between everyone, keeping conflicts from arising, and just sort of managing the different opinions in the session meeting without lording over anyone or forcing decisions on people, as can be seen in some more autocratic model churches. Rather than making decisions, he moderates and advises. And in his day-to-day, he also performs other servant jobs outside of the context of pure administrative studies. So comes teaching and caring, two probably his biggest roles in the church, even more so than the administrative stuff. He performs member care. Our church is very aged, so he spends a lot of time visiting hospitals and attending to the people who are sick or ill or fell and broke their hip. He always greets people as they leave a service. Everyone coming out can't get by without a handshake or a hug. And then he also renders the sacraments to everyone. If you're not familiar with Christianity, that would be, in all churches, baptism and communion, although some churches have others. And he really shared with me some interesting anecdotes about how these can bring people together, such as under apartheid in South Africa, as that was coming to a close, how the church was one of the only places where people of different races could all come to the same table and share the same food, the wine and the bread, and how much of a unifying role that plays. And how he's seen in other churches prior how it can overcome other boundaries, particularly in his experience class. And then there's teaching, of course, which usually takes up a larger portion of his week, which is preparing for sermons, looking at the liturgical calendars to determine what he's going to make a sermon about, then examining his different resources from the liturgical calendar itself to looking at hymnals, to examining different scriptural commentaries, and in that seeking to humble himself before God and the great minds of the church throughout history, and learn best how to teach people truth and service. And I think that about wraps it up. My experience with him has further solidified in my mind his role as an excellent friend and an excellent leader. Thank you.